certain NFL team decided to tank today at the NFL trade deadline. There were some other big moves of note as well. I think obviously the two big ones coming out of New York is Sauce Gardner. You have Quintin Williams on his way to Dallas. Howie Roseman, the Philadelphia Eagles, made two moves over the weekend. Jacksonville goes out. They acquire Jacoby Myers from the Raiders. You have Raheed Shaheed going from New Orleans to Seattle.
Which, by the way, I think that's actually the biggest move of the trade deadline in my opinion.
I disagree with you there. I think there's two bigger moves, clearly.
I know. Quintin Williams going to Dallas.
No.
Okay.
The first big move is obviously Sauce Gardner to the Colts, right?
Yes.
You give up 2 first-round picks. Now, I don't know. I think 2 first-round picks is a lot to pay for any corner, especially Sauce Gardner, who's had a down year the last couple of years. It is telling you the Indianapolis Colts, who Josh Ungar believed, by the way, going into the season, that the Indianapolis Colts would be worse somehow than the Cleveland Browns. And now they just went out and I basically said, we think we are going to try to win the Super Bowl this year by acquiring Sauce Gardner.
And with this move, they also are basically saying, yeah, we believe in Daniel Jones as our starting quarterback.
Yes.
And yet, he only has a contract for this season. So either that means he's going to
they're going to extend him. I can almost guarantee at this point they're going to extend him.
Either he's going to get a Baker Mayfield-esque extension, like you're suggesting, or they might franchise tag him.
I don't think the Colts are going to franchise tag him. I think that would be a risky game to play. You don't want to piss off Daniel Jones or his agent. They're saying, look what we did for you. You move off Anthony Richardson, who was your 4th pick in the draft. You invested a lot in him. What I brought to you, which is stability, and I think he is potentially the next reclamation project, like we've seen with Baker, Sam Darnold. You could even make a case for Mac Jones now in San Francisco. But the other big move, and before I get to it, the reason why I don't think Quintin Williams is the second biggest move is because I don't care. Yes, the Cowboys may have 2 pretty good defensive tackles. Their defense is still garbage. They're not a playoff team. They got beat last night at home by Jacoby Brissett in the Arizona Cardinals. They have all this great talent, but they are still looking ahead to next year because they have a lot of holes to fill on both, in my opinion, the defensive line, the offensive line, the secondary. They got to find a way to move off either Deron Bland or Trayvon Diggs. They're both getting paid a lot of money and are either hurt or not producing. My general manager, meanwhile, Howie Roseman, went out and acquired a guy in Jaelan Phillips, who, for a 3rd-round pick, was a premier edge rusher in the NFL 2 years ago in 2023, under who as the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator? Vic Fangio, who is now the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. You add him on a team where he was the Dolphins' best pass rusher. Well, now he gets the help of, I don't know, maybe the best defensive player in football named Jalen Carter, a big moose in the middle in Jordan Davis, the return of Nolan Smith, Jackson Hunt, the return as well of Brandon Graham. He is going to be mixed into that rotation of pass rushers where he will get a lot of one-on-one looks. I think he's going to have a huge impact for my Eagles defense because of the defensive line. And then Jair Alexander, listen, I don't know if he's got anything left, but it was a low risk, basically no risk, high reward. You only give up a 6th-round pick. And if he does turn into something, well, then all of a sudden you've got Quinyon Mitchell, you've got Jair Alexander, who, if he returns to somewhat Pro Bowl form, you still have Cooper DeJean then manning the slot. Once again, tell me the weakness of this Philadelphia Eagles roster.
Didn't Howie make a 3rd trade also?
And it was for the other Michael Carter, who was on the Jets. They have a running back named Michael Carter. He ended up taking a $5 million pay cut to go from probably the worst team in the NFL now in the Jets, if not the Saints or the Titans, to the Eagles to compete for a potential Lombardi trophy. Philadelphia gave up John Minchie, who got a grand total of 0 snaps with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. So the reason I hear what you're saying about what the Eagles did. And I agree with you about everything with Indianapolis and Sauce Gardner. But for me, still, the number one move was what Seattle did by trading for Rashid Shaheed. And the reason is this. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba on the one side, which defenses have been sliding their coverage towards him because they know how much Sam Darnold likes to throw the ball to him. Well, now you have Shaheed on the other side who can take the top off the defense. So now, plus you have Cooper Kupp who could come back at some point. So when you have two receivers on the outside like that, yes, JSN is your definitive number one, but still, you can't slide your coverage towards him when you got Shaheed on the other side. And basically, he doesn't have to relearn the offense in Seattle because he's got Kubiak as his offensive coordinator there. I think you're going to see Seattle do a lot more play action passing, which is going to be key because they have not yet played the Rams yet this season. The people at First Take thought the Seahawks had already faced the Rams, but they haven't.
They play the Niners week 1.
Yep.
They still have the Rams won twice, and they'll finish with Arizona this weekend. I think there are, I'm going to say 2, but it's really looped in a one flaw to your argument, which is, yes, per Pro Football Focus, Sam Darnold is the number 1 quarterback in football this year. A word I never thought I could say coming into the season about Sam Darnold going to Seattle. Here's the problem.
I will say, and I know we'll get to my top 5 MVPs. Him and Matt Stafford both slid up in my MVP rankings.
Well, here's the problem. I get what you're saying. He's a very good slot receiver. He was productive in New Orleans no matter what bum quarterback they had when Drew Brees retired. Here's my thing for Seattle. It's 2 things, really. Number 1 is, where are they going to finish in the, not the NFC West, in the NFC standings? Are they going to get home playoff games in Seattle? Or are they going to have to go on the road to a Philadelphia, maybe to a Tampa? Green Bay lost to Carolina, but maybe Green Bay is still in the playoff mix, and maybe they have to go to cold weather Green Bay, where those receivers are not going to be as effective, and Sam Darnold is not going to be as effective being on the road than he is in a home environment. And number 2, we saw Sam Darnold last year with a great offensive mind, with weapons galore in Minnesota, lead the Minnesota Vikings for 17 weeks to a 14-2 record. Then in the final 2 games of his season, the regular season finale at Detroit and the wild card game at Minnesota, Sam Darnold turned back into pumpkin mode. How do we not know that Sam Darnold is not going to turn back into pumpkin mode again?
No, you have a very valid argument, and to a certain extent, I don't disagree with you. He does have to prove it up in Seattle, but I love what I've seen from him. I am a little surprised Seattle did not try to trade for a running back. It seemed like Breece Hall was available.
Well, they have Walker and Charbonnet. What do they need another running back for?
If you want, you could use Charbonnet and or Walker in the passing game, and then you bring in another running back, and you still have that 2-headed monster.
Yeah, you still have the 2-headed monster no matter what. You can put them both on the field at the same time.
That part is true, yes.
Teams don't play for unless you're San Francisco and you can't use Check as a fullback / running back. Teams don't put 3 backs out there in the backfield.
Well, unless you're Philadelphia, who had LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, and
well, that was 10 years ago.
2017.
on one play. I mean, if you want to say we use multiple backs to shove Jalen Hurts across the line of scrimmage in the play that is ultimately unstoppable, that I did not hear any complaints about this weekend, even though my team was on a bye week. Gee, I wonder why that was when every team in the NFL used it.
Yes, that's true. But no, I understand what you're saying, but so far I'm trusting Sam Darnold, and I think it's important. Those two games against the Rams are going to decide who wins the NFC West.
Oh, I think if the Seahawks get home field advantage, they are at least NFC Championship game ceiling, if not Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's like remember we talked about this with the Vikings last year. You said if the Vikings beat the Lions and go 15-2, they are definitely a Super Bowl contender. And I said, well, yeah, the problem is I don't trust Sam Darnold. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they go week 18 to San Francisco. So they're going to play the Rams, I think, week 14 and then week 16. It's somewhere in there. Maybe it's 14, 17. I know they're pretty close relatively together. So that will be a big test because Sam Darnold is going to have to outduel Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Quintin Williams and Blake Corum and that Rams offense.
So they play at the Rams in week 11, and then they host the Rams on Thursday Night Football in week 16.
Okay, so that's 5 weeks apart. And depending on what San Francisco does, they're all beat to hell, but they're 6-3. And Shanahan typically owns McVay. They already beat the Rams and Seahawks. So if they can beat the Rams again this week, San Francisco's in pretty good shape as well.
Yeah, and Arizona is going with Jacoby Brissett now. We'll get more into that later, but they're not necessarily out of the mix. But
yeah, that Cardinals team last night was the Cardinals team I predicted that was going to win 10 games.
Yeah.
Since, of course, we haven't seen it this year.
No.